Okay, so yeah, this is going to be the first time showing a cleaning video. So the first thing I do start out is just regular old glass cleaner, and I just wipe it down. You don't really want, something that you're working on to just be grimy and gross to the touch while you're working on it. So go over it a little bit, and just make sure everything's kind of lightly cleaned up. We're not doing the bulk of the cleaning just yet. So yeah, just glass cleaner, paper towel, go over it for a little bit. Alright, time to begin disassembly. Just my little precision screwdriver kit. You can get those anywhere pretty cheaply. As you can see, the screws are pretty rusted in there, so wasn't too sure how far gone they were, if they were going to break or anything, so trying just to loosely get them out, seeing how much the heads are eaten away before the screwdriver can really get a purchase on them. Dropping the screws into some white vinegar to hopefully eat away a little bit of that rust and clean them up a bit. I haven't tried some other things yet, but I hear citric acid works really well also for eating away the rust. Alright, controller's open, get the screws out. Here I am just pretty much lining them up for a shot so that I can share the project on Twitter, as I did it kind of like step by step with photos. So just me taking a photo. And drop the rest of them in the vinegar, take the shell off, take a look at it. Take the board out. The contact pads, there's something sticky on it, probably like a soda spill or something like that. Inspect all the parts. The contact rubber for the D-pad has some tears in it, so not in the best shape. Some close-ups of just how disgusting the controller was, a little bit of that soda spill in the center there. The D-pad is just thumb gunk all over it. Some isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab going over the board, and here you'll kind of realize a lot of the carbon contact is coming up, so scrub a little bit lighter. Wasn't really expecting that. Yeah, not trying to take too much of that off because it'll stop with the sensitivity. One of the good things about the Dog Bone controllers is the cable is removable from the board, unlike the original NES controllers. You'd have to desolder the wires. So that makes it convenient, pretty easy to clean. Take the cable off, set it aside. Alright, getting everything together to take to the sink to give a good scrub. I like to keep the small parts in like a Tupperware container, also in the sink, and then the main plastic shells. I went ahead and fast forward through this bit because it would have just been 5 minutes of me scrubbing things in the sink, so didn't really need to be that long. But yeah, just toothbrush, dish soap, warm water, get in there and just make sure you get all the edges, the little nooks and crannies of everything, and just give it a go all the way around. Try to get inside everything. D-pads are one of the hardest parts to clean because of all the weird right angles that they have so it really takes a lot of effort and just going at it in different ways. Get the buttons. The rubber pads you want to clean very, very lightly. You don't want to tear them, especially one that's already torn like that. While everything is drying on a towel out in the kitchen, take a toothbrush and some isopropyl alcohol to clean the board a little bit, and just very lightly going over it. I'm not really using any pressure here. It's basically just coating it in alcohol to get any of that grime and things like that off, since I already did the bulk of the soda spill from the center with the cotton swabs. Here I did take off the stamp on it. I don't usually like to do that, but it's barely visible anyway. It's inside the controller. It's not really the worst thing. To clean the cable, I just dip a paper towel in some isopropyl alcohol, and then just, go over it a couple of times to make sure I get all of that grime off, and you'll see how dirty it is here. A lot of times it's easy to forget to do the cables, and you touch them, you feel them, it makes your hands feel gross, and you don't want that, so go over those. Get the connector, since it's got a lot of grippy ports, and it's something that was held fairly often by people or touched over and over again. It's going to get nasty, and it's got those little recesses that are going to hold on to all of that hand gunk. Get inside the pins just to make sure they're clean and gets a good connection. So everything's mostly dry now. Bringing it back over to the workbench. And I'm going to just scrub back over everything again with isopropyl alcohol to get anything that I may have missed, as well as to remove some of the staining and stuff like that. You can kind of see there's scuffs and kind of like maybe even ink spots on the controller that the soap won't get off, but the isopropyl alcohol almost always will. One of the things is the rusty screws had stained the screw wells, so getting in there with the alcohol and scrubbing each one individually, almost as much work as scrubbing the controller as a whole to get those, but you can really see how much that's pulling off and how much didn't get done in the sink from just the soap. A little tedious, but yeah, go through each and every one and just scrub them out individually until they look a little bit cleaner. Just going through spot cleaning any of the stain spots on it. Go through and same, there was a little bit of ink right there in the center that definitely came right up with the alcohol. It looks so much better. Getting in between the spots with a cotton swab where I couldn't get with the toothbrush. It just didn't fit inside. You can see how much is still left even after being washed in the sink. Get it from both sides, get inside there, clean out the button wells. The D-pad, which is one of the harder parts again to clean, is anywhere the D-pad would be. It just doesn't, the toothbrush doesn't quite fit in there. And another once over on the surface. Yeah, that tiny little indent definitely held a lot of crud. So go over it again, toothbrush just to break up anything and get that off of there. I'm going back over the button wells with the toothbrush just to give it a little more scrubbing. Such a hard and tricky spot to clean is that tiny little indent on the back that I'm not even quite sure what purpose it serves, or if it's just, know, a mark from the molding or something like that, maybe. I'm trying to clean that black scuff off, which is really more of a scratch, and it doesn't really come up too well, though it does lighten up a little bit after some of the scrubbing. But yeah, the back has a lot of scuff marks on it. You can kind of see it beginning to slowly kind of lighten up after going over it a few times. Putting some white vinegar inside the screw wells. I'm just using the cotton swab to drip it in there, and hopefully dissolve some of that rust that's still left behind on the plastic, and I'm just going to let that sit aside for a few minutes. Alright, same thing with the D-pad, cotton swab, and isopropyl to get in those weird right angles that you can't get otherwise, because the toothbrush isn't going to get everything, and the soap doesn't break everything up. The alcohol is much better solvent for removing a lot of that age and that hand gunk and everything that's built up over the years. Also, you know, keeps it nice and clean and makes everything a little more sterile. Yeah, you can see here stuff that the toothbrush missed on the inside there. Ugh, gross. So, more alcohol on toothbrush. Try to scrub inside those little indentations. Here, yeah, there's still more inside, so I'm using one of the screwdrivers to kind of scrape it out, and, you know, don't want to leave anything in there. And a little bit more just to try to break up anything that's left inside. Buttons, they cleaned up well enough with the toothbrush. They didn't really need too much going over, but there was still a little bit stuck where they rub against the plastic, and I guess it just kind of like hardens and flattens up against it. So a little bit of alcohol usually helps just kind of break up anything left. I noticed some red on there, and I'm not sure where that came from, as the plastic is colored. It's not painted or anything, so it's not like anything was lifting off of it. So it must have been something spilled on it at some point, or maybe someone dipped something on it, like nail polish or something. I have no idea. The rubber pads just go over, again, very, very lightly. You don't want to rip or tear them in any way, and you don't want to clean the carbon contacts too much. It will reduce the sensitivity of them, and your buttons won't work. Yeah, there was a lot of gunk on both sides of the D-pad, which was surprising, but you can only clean off so much without being forceful, so, you know, leave a little bit of it on there and check them out, make sure they're still pressing down right. If not, it's going to have to be replaced. But this one was torn a little, but was working well enough, it seemed like. Using some glass cleaner on a paper towel just to wipe everything off, any debris that it may have picked up from my pad there, and just go over it and kind of make it shiny and nice looking. Doing this now before putting it together always means that you can get some of those weird and awkward angles that you can't always get. Yeah, you can see a couple of spots that I missed there, and go back over those again before I put it back together. Yeah, much better looking, yeah. some more glass cleaner and doing the same thing on the rear of the shell. Just go over it and clean it up, make it, you know, shiny and clean looking. It's still pretty yellowed, so it's never going to look perfect, and I considered retro brighting it, but it's autumn here and there's not enough sunlight at the moment, so I may do that again another day, but honestly it doesn't bother me too much with the yellowing. Really the cleanliness is what I'm going for. Yep, clean that vinegar out of the screw wells. And it definitely helped. You can see that it lifted a lot of the remaining rust out of there. Even after cleaning them multiple times, you can see what's coming back on the cotton swab and how yellow it is from picking all that up. And using a screwdriver again, one of the smaller precision ones, to try and scrape up any of that rust. Not everything can be solved with chemical cleaners, and sometimes you do have to use something abrasive, and in this case just scraping it away with something metal was definitely necessary. Doing the same thing and another one of the screw wells. Still trying to get off any kind of staining. Not really sure what a couple of those scuff marks are from, but they do look like basic plastic on plastic scuffs, which usually comes up with a little bit of scrubbing with the isopropyl. And just once more, trying to get anything left. And even though they'll be hidden by the screws and everything, I still wanted make sure everything's clean on the inside, even the parts you can't see. Alright, and the best way to clean these is I just, press them against the paper towel and press the buttons into it, and that should kind of transfer any debris or anything that's left onto it without having to scrub them and risk tearing them. Yeah, the buttons, you can see the plastic wherever they scrape against the shell. So I just put a little bit of glass cleaner onto my surface and then use another cotton swab to just go over them in a little more fine detail than what a paper towel can get. And it just helps mostly just shine them up and gets rid of that kind of like white plastic age that you kind of see over time. The D-pad is textured. It's a little bit more difficult to kind of shine up with this, so just kind of liberal application of the glass cleaner on a cotton swab and go over everything. And same with the buttons, you have some kind of like white streaking where plastic scrapes on plastic. And this kind of helps at least hide that a little bit, or kind of like makes it disappear a little bit. last rubber contact. And again, just press it against the paper towel. Don't want to scrub it or anything to risk damaging it. Okay, it is reassembly time, so basically going in reverse order, start by reconnecting the controller cable to it. Take the shell. Thankfully the buttons on almost everything, every controller, are usually keyed, so they're only going to go in one way. You don't have to worry about putting the wrong ones in the wrong spot. Put down the rubber contacts for start select since they don't have buttons. D-pad in, and it only goes in one way. Here it takes me a minute to try and remember and figure out just the orientation of the D-pad rubber contact. It's got a little loop on it that connects one way. I just couldn't quite remember the orientation that it was supposed to be, so I mess around with it for a minute, and then I go back over my photos and kind of confirm that, yep, I still got it wrong. Okay. Yep, check my phone here. Figure out which one it goes in. There we go. Got it right that time. That's how it goes. Awesome. Alright, put the board back on top. Run the strain relief through for the cable. And make sure that's nice and snug. And then here you'll see that I didn't quite put the A-B button rubber contact down right, so it's not sitting flush. Before you start screwing things together, always make sure everything fits, because you don't want to risk damaging anything. You don't want to break one of the plastic standoffs. You don't want to rip or force any cables or the rubber contacts or anything. So always, very, very lightly make sure everything fits together first. So strain relief back in, now that it's sitting flush, and it sits on there exactly how it should. So, the screws, you can kind of tell, I have cleaned up quite a bit, and I will show a close-up in a little bit of the before and after of those before the end, just to show the difference that white vinegar really made. Other than that, just reverse order of how we took it apart. Screws. I usually try to do opposite sides or edges first, then center. Yeah, that screw, that was one of the worst ones. It was really eaten away, so the screwdriver didn't want to hold on to it very well, so I had to be kind of gentle with that one, not to risk stripping it and getting it stuck in there. It's no fun. The other thing is you want to turn slightly anti-clockwise before going clockwise with the screws. Since it's metal in plastic, you don't want to just go in there and start turning it in, as if it's not in properly, it will basically bore a hole through the plastic, and if the screw is going to fit loosely, it just won't stay in there anymore. Yeah, you can see the screw didn't turn in easily. It should go in with almost no force whatsoever, so if it does feel like you're having to force it, back it out, keep turning it anti-clockwise again until it kind of clicks into place, and then tighten it back in. And that's pretty much it. I'll give it another once over with the paper towel and glass cleaner just to, clean off any of the stuff that it may have picked up from my work spot here. And to give it kind of one final shine. Just making sure all the buttons were sitting well and everything was still working now that it's back together. Make sure nothing was over tightened or you know, squeezed into or anything like that. But that's pretty much it. That's, you know, disassembling, cleaning, and putting back together a NES Dog Bone controller. All the buttons feel fine, everything feels alright, so... Yep, here's yeah, that's how bad the screws were in the beginning. And then that's what they looked like after some time in the vinegar. They probably could have gone longer and have finished them out, but here's a close-up of where the controller goes in, how gross it was, and then what it looked like after cleaning, so you can see such a huge improvement that that made. And there's the finished product. That's the controller. It's done.